Hey, my name's Tasia. I'm a Dillard High alum. I used to be president of our poetry club, Writers Block. So, just happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you. Can we hear from Mr. Cordell Jones, please?
Hello, everybody. My name is Cordell Jones. I'm currently a senior at Miramar High School, a part of the Miramar Truth Spitters, and I am the vice president of our club. So I am great to have the opportunity to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Last but not least, we have Ms. Manushka Saint-Hill.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manushka Saint-Hill. I am a marriage and family therapist. I also am a board member for the Jason Taylor Foundation, and I work for Broward County Public School. So I have multiple hats on right now, and I'm just happy to be here to share this space with you guys.
Thank you. So last but not least, I want our moderator to introduce themselves because, of course, who are we without our moderator? So Ms. Lisa Lee, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am Lisa Lee. And don't worry, I was in transition from one place to another. So I do apologize for that. But I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you again to the Jason Taylor Foundation for having me. So I look forward to a good discussion tonight.
Awesome. So again, want to thank everybody for coming out. I will turn it over to our wonderful moderator.
All right, guys, so I just wanted to thank everyone for being here this evening and just wanted to open up the floor to discuss with you tonight, your feelings on unspoken word, like how everyone got started in this. So anyone want to go first and talk about their experience in it, how they got started?
Can you hear me? Go because I don't have any experience.
Okay.
I could go first. So I don't have any experience in spoken word. I think I just fell in love with the art. And it's more of the support. So, everybody needs a champion. So I am the one that is going to be in the background, high-fiving, doing toe touches, and continuously being the hype person for this work. Because my memory, I cannot memorize anything to save my life. So I don't know how well I would do in that space. So I am a proud supporter.
Well, thank you. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you do and what you're seeing? Like, spoken word, a lot of times I love it because I feel like we're hearing the voices of our youth. It's definitely a place of where everyone can express themselves and explain their world and how they see the world. So in your line of work, talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing and how you see spoken word serving as a purpose for a voice of the next generation.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Speaking to another person. So therapy is the art of speaking, right? So most of what you do as a therapist is that you use language and you use the person's story to help them come to either a conclusion or start a new story or heal from a past story. So it's all through the use of words. So spoken word has a great correlation because it's about storytelling. And so this allows our youth in a safe space to tell stories that is reflective of their own personal lived experience or the experience of their friends and family. So it's like sitting in a therapeutic session without having to pay for that therapy and actually going through that whole stigma that is associated with therapy. So this is really a great space to start the conversation, to begin to heal from some of the things that we may have experienced in the past, and also a platform to celebrate, because it's not always just about healing from past hurt, but sometimes we forget to celebrate. So I've heard in the spoken word space, them students encouraging each other and supporting each other. So it gives so many opportunities to grow in so many directions with the oldest form of art, which is speaking.
And with our topic today, talking about, you know, digital safety and being on social media, what are some of the trends that you see that's occurring that we should be aware of?
So I would definitely believe, well, based on what I've seen, is that we're using social media for everything, right? It's our news, it's our comedy, it's our outlet, you know, it is playing multiple roles in multiple aspects of our lives. So the key word is balance. And I think it's very hard for, you know, this generation to establish balance because they were bred into this space. And so this is the space that they recognize, understand, and feel comfortable with. But that's the time where I employ the adults and the support team of those that surround the kids and the youth to just explain what does that balance look like. Like, yeah, I know this is everything right now, but there are so many other aspects of life happening simultaneously that I need you to pay attention to. So my keyword would be balance, teaching them how to balance being in that social media space as well as being present so they don't miss out on the things that are happening before them because they're so in tune and in sync with what's happening in social media.
I'm just wondering, like, who's out there who's watching today has had an experience that they want to share, to talk about what they've seen on social media, things that maybe have made them uncomfortable, and a situation that we can, you know, look into. What are some of the issues that we're seeing right now on social media that's taking precedence? Like, I know with my kids, what I'm seeing is a lot of the need to feel that we're keeping up with everyone else. That we see that someone is at the beach today. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't go to the beach today. Or, you know, this person is constantly posting videos or pictures of themselves where they look perfect, but I'm not posting enough pictures. And that need to keep up, well, we used to say back in the day, keep up with the Joneses. So I want to hear from like some of the teenagers, and the panelists here, what are some of the things and the pitfalls that you guys are seeing on social media that may lead into, let's see, a deep, dark web that you may go into? Is there anyone who wants to jump in?
Personally, I actually had to write a thesis paper on just any random topic, and I actually picked like the negative effects of social media on Generation Z specifically. So that would kind of be like people around my age bracket, I want to say. And I feel like one of the things I really urge anybody on social media to have is just a certain level of self-awareness. Like with social media, you get to handpick what aspects you see on there. And it's just, people are always going to post their highs. Like no one's going to get on Instagram and be like, hey, I had the worst day ever. Look at how terrible this has been for the past couple months. And it's just urging people to understand that life and growth isn't linear at all, as much as social media wants you to believe that it is. And it's just like the fact that people can be on social media and leave with this feeling of depression, even though this was like a thing that you chose to do, is ridiculous. So personally for me, I just feel like people need to practice a certain amount of self-awareness and like practice accepting what their reality is, and that it's okay that their perceived reality of other people's isn't the case.
It's true. You know, that I, you know, even being an adult, and I'm very, very active on social media, I'm on there a lot. And for me, I see adults also following into the pitfalls of trying to keep up with the other people and everyone else who's on there, and the competition. And it almost makes us all feel inadequate, I feel. Is there anyone else who wants to add to that? Like, are you guys noticing that you may feel inadequate in what you're seeing because of what other people are posting? How does that make you feel about your self-worth? None of my other panelists are going to talk. No one wants to say anything.
I could kind of add on to it
Okay,
because no problem. I wouldn't say for a while that social media has affected me in that way, but sometimes due to people putting up the facade of, I guess, the happiness and good parts of their lives, and usually since you're never seeing the low parts of of their lives, it's kind of like you end up assessing it to your life, and you put it with your highs and the lows that they don't see, and you're kind of wanting to have that, I guess, picture perfect cookie cutter thing that you see on social media, which isn't really the case for the people behind the profile and yourself in general. So you can end up kind of comparing yourself and trying to, I guess, force yourself to fit this sort of mold that isn't even a really solid mold to begin with.
No, absolutely. And do you think feeling that desire and need to fit in and to keep up with everyone else, do you think that it can lead to unsafe methods in which we communicate with people on the internet? And have you seen that happen?
Oh, I definitely believe it can create unsafe methods in terms of how we communicate with people on the internet. And with some people, I've seen it happen to where it's almost like this, I wouldn't say this fake persona, but this false sense of reality ends up becoming most of their identity. So then if you were to just say, take the social media account away from them, it almost is like you're taking a part of their life that seems like it's just never been there away. And it just kind of, I don't know how to accurately describe this, but to me, it feels like it's just, I guess in a way, I'm losing my train of thought, makes them just kind of feel inadequate to everybody else, and then consistently try to like make up for whatever they don't have compared to somebody else on social media. And it just becomes a constant cycle that almost never gets broken unless somebody has the tools or methods to break out of that cycle.
And that's a very good point, Cordell. And how I'm seeing it as well is what I'm seeing, and you know, I host a high school academic game show, and I get to interact with a lot of teens, and I'm also raising teens. And what I'm seeing too, where there's an open window for people to have unhealthy and unsafe interactions on the internet, is that, you know, we all want to be liked, and we want likes. And so because of that, when we find that someone is showing an interest on our posts or things that we're doing, we may get excited, not understanding the other person's motives on the other end. For example, I had a lady reach out to me. I did a post on my Instagram, and, you know, she wrote something really nice to me, you know, God bless me, blah, blah, blah. And I try my best to interact with folks and DM and everything. And before I knew it, it turned into this huge ask of financial support from me to her and for her child and a situation she was going through. And to me, it just kind of screamed scammer, you know, all of a sudden. And I felt for a minute like, you know, here's someone I thought I was genuinely interacting with, and now they're trying to scam me for some money. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she genuinely was just reaching out to me to ask, but I don't know. And because of that, I'm going to step away. So do you think, you know, with dealing with technology and interacting with people, and I want to hear from everybody on here, you know, do you think that technology has advanced to a dangerous point where now we're interacting with folks who we don't know, but we may think we know because we see a picture of them, or we build a connection, even if we're on Reddit and we're there having a conversation and we're interacting with people? Does anyone feel like, you know, that that it's become dangerous, or do you guys feel comfortable interacting?
I don't personally think technology has grown dangerous. I feel like people have just gotten way too comfortable through technology. Like there's just, even now, where social media has pushed people to think that they need to have a constant input on something. They always have to say something. They need to interact this way or that way. Like even the idea of an algorithm being engagement based, I feel like is so dangerous, because sometimes something doesn't need to be said. People don't always have to participate. So I just feel like people almost feel like they have this protection behind a screen to say anything or do anything, or that they feel like they're obligated to, or else they lose this like imaginary place in social media.
Wow, that's a really good point. Does anyone agree or disagree?
So I might throw a wrench. A
Go
wrench.
ahead.
I always say
Get
English is
that.
my second language, so I have to be very clear into the conversation. Only because, so I am Generation Y, right? So I think about the fact that a lot of what's happening is that our parents, the parents, have a huge responsibility to validate children, human beings, before they start to interact on any platform, either physically face to face or on social media. So if my child, if the work that I do as a parent is effective, and it's not just about the old school methods of that strict discipline and you do as I say and all of the things. Parenting now is more collaborative because our kids can pick up information like this, whereas before it was spoon fed to our generation, and so we really relied on our parents to give us those factual information. So it starts in the home. It doesn't matter what's going on outside of those doors. If that child doesn't have that validation in the home and that parent is not doing their due diligence to raise a whole child and putting all of their effort into doing it right, then you are starting that child's experience, no matter where they are, whatever they experience, whether it's school, social media, they're operating in a deficit. So we really have to take ownership, parents, as to you make the decision to bring this child into the world. This is your responsibility. Everything you do is around providing for your family and your children. So your first assignment is your children. So when I work with families, we take it all the way back that these four walls is your primary responsibility, making sure they have what they need to be whole human beings when they walk into society. Because in the absence of that, they will get caught up in the algorithms. They will get caught up in the negative media. They will get caught up in all of the negative things that surround us. That's inevitable. But if you start, equip them, hopefully they'll remember some of the things that you've imparted in them and they'll be able to navigate those waters in your absence.
Well, let me ask because I see we have a lot of teens on here as opposed to parents. So the parents aren't here to say or to hear or to speak to that. But let me ask our panelists, like, do you feel that your parents did a good job without bashing your parents or anything, but do you feel, or you can even speak for your peers who aren't here, do you feel within your generation that you guys have been prepared to be on the internet? Or do you think that adults just kind of blow this whole internet thing out of proportion? Do you think that we're just making a big deal out of nothing?
My main thought is that while I do believe that some of us in our generation have been able, or with parents that have been in place that have taught us about how to use the internet and how to access the internet and the things that we should and shouldn't do on the internet, at that point, then they gave us the tools to properly use the internet. Whereas other people, a part of our generation, have been almost groomed by the internet to a point where it's like where when the parent wasn't there at that point, the internet was. So whatever they picked up on, any sort of skills, life skills, just things in general, they have learned from the internet. So essentially it almost is it's almost like the internet becomes that like third parent where the first and second parent weren't showing up in that instance.
All right. Cordell, I want you to be specific when you talk. Like you're definitely dropping some gems, but you're holding back. And I want to hear when you say things, because in order for us, I feel, especially me as an adult, in order for me to help the next generation, because you have to realize too, right? There's so much that we can learn from you, and there's so much that you can learn from us. And I know at the end of the day, the purpose of this is that we can learn from each other, right? But I need to know specifically, like, what are some of the things that you guys are learning on the internet? I know some of the things that I didn't want my children learning on the internet that they learned about, some conversations that I would have preferred to have with them first, but I was forced to have it because they were exposed to sites that I didn't even know were just wide open. And I'm sure you guys can read between the lines and understand what I'm talking about. And, but what are some of the things outside of, X-rated things that we won't get into? What are some of the things that you feel that are parenting children nowadays? And Cordell doesn't have to be the only one to answer. I know there's, Ray, I haven't heard from you yet. So whoever else wants to jump in, but Cordell, you can start it off.
Well, if I had to go into specifics, I feel like certain things within social skills, in terms of just talking to people and not oversharing online, because that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people are part of our generation and the generation that mainly grew up when these apps were developing, is one thing that's just, it's like constant. It's like, regardless of what it is, you're going to see a lot of people oversharing parts of their life that they don't really have to put on blast. And it essentially just kind of opens the door for people to just see into your life entirely. Where, because I mean, some will put up the facade and then you only see the happy things, but then on other social media platforms, you almost learn through just the experience of seeing other people where you're like, oh, well, I'm comfortable here. They're oversharing parts of their life. It lets me be able to do the exact same thing. Because God knows, growing up, seeing it on Twitter, seeing it on Facebook, seeing it on Instagram, seeing people constantly talk about their lives all the time, it almost put me and a lot of other people I knew in the mindset of, oh, well, they're talking about whatever they want to talk about in their life, regardless if it's like a minute by minute update or a daily briefing about what they're doing. That gives me the ability to talk about it. And especially if I don't have anybody at home to talk about it with, like my parents, then the internet would just be the empty void that you're able to talk into, and pray that somebody listens to you and responds to it so you can get whatever validation that you weren't getting from your parents or the validation that you aren't getting in person.
That's a really good point. Did anyone else want to jump in? Because I want to know what you guys consider too much sharing, oversharing, and what's not, because I feel like it can lead to being safe. So, and this whole topic is definitely talking about, safety. So go ahead.
Personally, like, I have young parents, so when social media was developing, my parents were able to do that. So I just feel like I was lucky enough to have parents who kind of understood and were involved in social media. Like, my dad's on Instagram more than me. And so there's just certain things that I feel like your parents can equip you with, but social media is definitely a scary place for anybody. I know personally with people oversharing, I feel like they know that there's guaranteed engagement online. Some people maybe just don't feel heard enough in real life, so they'd rather open up to a bunch of strangers because they know at least those strangers are going to listen, they're going to respond. I feel like more often than not, when you're surrounded by people every day, they almost feel like they don't have to listen because they're used to you being there. They're used to you talking. Like, I feel like oversharing is anything that somebody can use online under a facade to get to you, especially with younger kids. It's kind of just like they could be oversharing this and oversharing that, and next thing you know, there's like a stranger at your bus stop or your favorite restaurant because you were oversharing. And so I feel like sometimes parents can only do so much. I feel like it's almost kind of up to these social media platforms to implement more safety plans and contingency plans. I feel like geotags are really dangerous. I don't understand why geotags are a thing. Like, why do you have the specific location to where I'm at on my story? Nobody asked. So I just feel like we almost need to hold social media accountable for some of these things being able to happen. I shouldn't have been able to make an Instagram at 10 years old. I did because I felt like I could do whatever I wanted. But just something as simple as like when Facebook first came out, you had to be a proven college student to use it. But with Instagram, you just lie about your age and you're on there. Right. So I just feel like there's almost some things that the users and parents can't really do to prevent things, which is a major part of the issue.
So you're saying that you definitely want to see better safety measures put in place, such as maybe age restrictions with the internet. And that's really interesting coming from, someone as young as you to say that. Now, I know that we had a hand up from Ms. Herring at Cypress Bay. So can we unmute?
Oh, wow. Okay. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I know you had your hand up for like 10 minutes and I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
No, it's okay. I was actually in a car, so I probably shouldn't have been messing around with my phone in the first place, but I've made it home. There were a couple things that were said that sort of sparked a topic for me. But I think what initially I put my hand up for was the question about social media in general. And my initial thought was how so many people now, both young and older, are either defining or seeking identity through that medium by itself instead of with real life relationships. And it's so interesting to me being a teacher, being a parent, and being a Gen X. So I'm Gen X. And for Gen X, we actually ushered in social media in its simplest form with America Online and Yahoo Messenger and Black Planet and all of these other websites that I was an active participant in because I was in my 20s when it started. So even though it was some of the same safety dangers of the digital world that you could come across, meeting people who have false facades, scammers, people who had very malicious intent towards you, but the majority of the people just wanted to connect. Right. And not just connect online, but connect in real life. I met so many people in real life that I initially met online. And there was this sense of comfort and camaraderie. And now it is so combative and nasty and competitive that I don't know how kids are going to be able to navigate this if some of the adults don't remind themselves of what it was like to be in their position. Because when I was younger, I was wrapped up in it. I was spending hours at a time till 4 a.m. on my computer talking to people when I had an 8 o'clock class the next morning. You know, I feel like there is some validity to what the young lady just said, which it is very difficult to control. I have a 12-year-old who wants to be online, who started a TikTok account without my knowledge at first, that now I have to monitor. It is enticing for them to be included, involved, and I don't know what the answer is as far as policing or monitoring it, whether it's the parents' responsibility, whether it's the company's responsibilities. But what I do know is that we need to start listening to our kids more. I think that's part of the reason why they're running in the first place, is that we need to listen to our kids more, and we need to stop feeling like we are imposing on their experience and be involved in their experience the same way that our parents were involved in ours.
No, I totally agree with you. And I just like you, I was, a part of that social media era. I'm on it. And I felt as a mom, I have a 19, 17 and an 9-year-old. He just turned 9 last week. And I felt like whatever social media they were going to be on, I'm going to be on. And I made sure that we could all see each other's accounts. My husband, his Instagram says I'm only on here to follow my kids, so that we can see what's going on. We actually have family group chats where we send each other things, and it's turned into a positive thing for my family because we've turned it into a positive thing where we actually communicate together on it, but it's not our only form of communication. So but it is also a scary place because the other day, my 9-year-old was on his PlayStation and he said he got scammed he was trying to trade something. I don't even understand like the whole PlayStation thing, but he was trying to, because you can play with random folks, and I didn't realize that. So a rule in my house is you cannot play with someone unless we know them, like personally know them. I don't let him play with strangers, because he said someone scammed him in a trade where he was trying to trade something in either Fortnite or one of his games. And so that brings me to the question, how do you prevent being scammed online? And have you guys even recognized when scammers are there, or when bots are at you, or even fake trolls are there? All the negative things wrapped in one. How do you all deal with that? And what do you think? And how can we support you in those things? So the floor is open to any of our panelists.
Being from Broward, I feel like we all kind of know the whole underlying like city of fraud thing. So I definitely feel like it is about environment. Like I feel like kids from Broward are probably going to be able to sniff out a scam before somebody from like Vancouver or something like that. I feel like once again, like our family therapist was saying earlier, was that it does start at the home. Teach your children to like look for those kinds of signs and stuff like that. Like for example, my mom telling me like, because personally, like there was a situation just recently, there was this girl was looking for hair models or whatever, not a thing on her page, not a client tag, no one's like reposting the hair if you already have established ambassadors. I just feel like people need to start putting the factor of shame to the side and genuinely not only teaching others but being willing to learn, because even tying that into a situation like with the oversharing and stuff like that, I feel like people are so often to judge you in real life that you don't care if a stranger judges you. So you'd rather open up and trust that stranger because it's like people do the same thing in real life. So it just turns into a situation of, if you're not teaching your child how to deal with that in real life, what are the odds of them knowing online?
That's a really good point. Anyone else want to jump in? We have Venetia on here. We have Ray. Manishka, do you want to jump in?
No, she hit the nail on the head, of, as we talked about earlier, is just making sure that we are teaching those lessons first. So it doesn't matter what area, what arena they end up in, they have those skills, you know. And so, you know, when you think about education, I've been in education for 20 years. And if you've noticed, social emotional learning has emerged as something that we didn't do back in our day. We didn't do cell classes. And so now that we're having to implement that because we realize that there's a deficit there. And so once we notice something is missing, then the adults have to rally together to put something together to meet that need. And that's where we are now, trying to address the need with social media, and it's being, you know, it's just being thrown at them. But I always remind my parents when they sit in my office and they're trying to understand their child, and I tell them, didn't your parents think that television was going to ruin you? I mean, when their parents were having them, it was like the box, the box. It was the worst thing ever invented, and they promised you that the television was going to ruin you. Looks like they turned out pretty well. It's
Right.
just about collaboration, guidance, open lines of communication. It has to be, everybody has to be all in. We can't operate in our silos. Like, children are not children and children stay in their children place. Like, that's not where we are anymore. That collaborative conversation has to take place. They're picking up on things much faster than you did in your generation. So you have to pick up on the collaboration, and not think that it's something that's out of their scope and that they don't understand. They absolutely do understand.
That's definitely, everyone's writing facts. Yeah, so true. That is so true. Venetia, you have your hand up. The floor is yours.
I absolutely agree with everything that Mia and Taja are saying, because we can't afford to not talk about it with them. Because what we don't do, the internet definitely will do, and with much less caution or filters, it'll just rip that thing wide open. And then they're left to deal with trying to understand a mature concept at an immature age. And it's just, oh, you just cannot, you have to talk about these things and what those pitfalls are, so that they can know to recognize it, to identify, and to be able to avoid being victimized by what's out there in social media and in the internet. We know that they have the fingertips, the world at their fingertips, like Mia was just mentioning, and we know what's in this world. So we know what they can possibly come across online. And so you cannot not talk about it. You just can't. And then when I think Taja mentioned earlier about just the need to connect, about just students having opportunities. Sometimes you talk to students, and maybe you're lucky enough to have them in your class or for them to be part of an organization or a club, but there are a lot of students who never, find a community in high school, and they just pass right through without anything, connection. And that's just one of the saddest things to me, is that they don't have that, and so they don't have an opportunity to have these type of conversations that we may have in our poetry club or in certain classrooms and stuff like that. And it's just, you always hear students say, because I teach peer counseling, but I'm also a parent to 3 teenagers. And in peer counseling, just them being able to say, like, dang, at least I get to, I'm like, who would you have ever talked to this about? They would have been like, nobody, just to hear from their peers, and to hear like a teenage perspective, an adult perspective, a parent's perspective of some of those situations they encounter. And when you ask them, oh, why not share a home? Sometimes they're just not available to do it, that their parents are working, or that they're like, okay, the relationship is not quite like that, or I might just get hit with the parent stick and not just like an unbiased, let me just hear what you have to say, So it's so many things, but we need conversations like these.
Thank you for that. Do you guys feel, for the students that's on this call, do you feel like you get support from your family, or do you feel or like positive encouragement with your use of technology, or do you feel that you're ushered to like stop using technology, or you're using too much of it, or do you hear your parents complaining about that? Nobody? Everybody? Well, I know Ty, you're fine, right? Because you said your dad's on it more than you. So, because I know, like in my house, sometimes I have to tell my kids to put it down. Like, I have to tell myself to put it down sometimes. Like, I actually look at how much screen time I'm using on my phone. Do you guys take advantage of that in your phones? You can just nod, thumbs up, or let me know. You guys, are you aware of the amount of time you spend on the internet? And yes, okay. Well, that's good. So, I have some questions here. I'm going to try and go through to get your feel of everything. And do you think you spend too much time on the internet? How many of you think you spend too much time on the internet? Put your hand out. A little bit. Ray says a little bit. Do you feel that a lot of the time you spend on the internet, okay, I see more hands. Do you feel like a lot of the time you spend on the internet is because of assignments from school? Yes, because I see that too. Like your teachers are assigning things that require you to be on the internet. And then do you feel that technology sometimes gets in the way of relationships? That's a big one, like friendships. And even when you get to meet somebody, everybody's yes. And, I was having a conversation with my neighbor and we were talking about even dating, when you meet someone, you know everything about them before you even really get to know them. Like when I started dating my husband, all I knew about him was whatever he told me. But nowadays, if you meet someone, all you got to do is go to their page and just start scrolling. Oh, okay, they're friends with this person, they're friends with that. So you kind of feel like you know that person already. So how do you feel that has impacted friendships and relationships that you guys have had with other people?
I met my boyfriend online.
Online?
So
okay,
yeah,
we're
actually long distance, and like we've known each other since I want to say my sophomore year of high school, which was like really crazy. So there's this person that I've never met, kind of know about them, but I can say that realistically, I learned more about him off of the internet than on. I feel like, I guess with my generation specifically, we've gotten a lot better with being active on social media, but not putting all of our business on there. Like people know more business about me off of my mom's Facebook than my Instagram, realistically. Like I can talk to a family member and they were just like, oh, how was that event you went to last week? Why do you know about that? My mom's Facebook. Versus with my social media, the most you might know, depending on my background, is, oh, I went to that high school. I don't even think I had my age on my social media because I like to keep my business. Like I didn't find out my boyfriend had like over 20,000 followers on TikTok until we started dating. That was private. So it was just one of those things where I feel like it's a generational thing. I feel like the generation before me definitely got on like Facebook and was like, oh, yep, gonna put everything on here.
Everything.
And our generation was just like, I feel like with our generation, we kind of put our little secret alter egos online versus our personal selves.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there because I know that your generation, and maybe this is, and I love that you're being so open and honest with us. You guys have a lot of Finsta accounts where you do put your business out there. Okay, so stop acting like, y'all just, we just don't have 2 accounts. We don't have time for that. We just do one and we put it all out there and you guys will have 2. And
we have Finstas, but we probably have max 100 followers. We know everybody on there. And if you're on there, we let you. Like my mom for a while didn't even know she could make her Facebook private. So it's just one of those things where I feel like even if we do overshare, we put ourselves in a space to make sure we felt safe doing that.
Okay.
So like, because that was the whole reason of me, like I have a Finsta, but it was one of those things where because I did music, because I was the president of my poetry club and stuff like that, I wanted my main account to be something that was like strictly professional. This was what I wanted to present to people. And then my Finsta was kind of just that private thing where I let my personal friends on there and people I felt like that knew how to mind their business. And then that's where I would do whatever oversharing I felt comfortable with. I just feel like because we were a generation that grew up in social media, we felt comfortable doing it, but with the proper steps. Like my mom just get on Facebook and be like, my daughter ate a sandwich from McDonald's today. Why do you needed to know that?
Well, I think in her defense, how old's your mom?
Mom's 34.
Your mom is super young. So listen, in her defense, because I'm much older than your mom, I have no problem saying it. I'm 43, so I'm of a different generation. I was born in 78, which, it's funny because my little one will say, he'll say, that's an old time car, like from the 80s. And I'm like, that's not really a long time ago, but whatever. So anyhow, so yes, there is a difference because when social media just came out for us, for me, I was already a mom. I was in my 20s. I remember the day I signed up for Facebook. It was because Barack Obama was running for president and he was going to do a live on Facebook or something on Facebook. And that's why I signed up for Facebook. And I might have been like 27. I was older around that time and I already had 2 kids. And so we didn't know how to use it. We were just communicating, and my degree is in broadcast journalism, and I've never had a problem with communicating to people. So for me, it was just another form of communicating, and I'm an open book. But yes, I do have personal things that I don't share. I never put on social media when my house caught on fire, when I was going through the worst time of my life. I didn't put on there when my daughter broke her eye socket at camp and we were going through a lawsuit. There were some things that we kept private, but I think in your mom's defense and in the older folks' defense, we also didn't grow up with it. So we were learning how to use it and we were communicating the best way that we knew how. And I think that if you guys spoke up to us a little bit more and told us, and we had a mutual respect with listening to the other generation, we have so much to learn from each other. So as far as like being on the internet and oversharing, and I liked how you talked about the geotags. I hope that everyone has disabled the geotag, especially on Snapchat. I hate when I go on Snapchat and I press them and I can see where everyone is at. Like when you talk about safety, it is important. How many of you are very aware of that when you post? Like, is this something that you think about? Do you think, because I know I never posted. My husband used to travel a lot for work and I would never post that he was out of town whenever. How many of you are conscious of that when you are posting?
If I use a geotag, I post like a day or 2 after. I'm never telling people where I am while I'm there, to be honest.
Okay. And Cordell, what about you? Do you use geotags?
Not often. I don't really talk about most of the places that I kind of go off to unless it's like after the fact. So it's never like I'm actively at some place that's not my house and I'm continuously talking about how I'm not at my house or not at home. It'll probably be after the fact when I get back and then I post whatever I had from me not being here.
So how do you think, like, we're talking about different generations and all ages, and I have a question here. It says, how important do you think it is for people of all ages to be well-versed in digital literacy? Do you think it's important for, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old? My 9-year-old told me, he said the other day, he was like, Mom, I was in class and I'm Googling, because now all they use are laptops and and he uses a what do you call it? I can't think of it. Not this one, the other iPad. I couldn't think of the name. He uses an iPad, and he was saying, "Mom, I Googled you during class." And I'm like, how do you have time to Google me? Like, what are you doing? Why do you have access? You're not, he was 8 at the time, you're in 3rd grade. So do you think it's important for all ages to be well-versed in digital literacy? And I'm talking about like the little ones all the way up to grandma. I know that the elite source wants to jump in. Who's the elite source?
Hi, my name is Darrellton.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's my
Hi.
phone name. My phone name is named The Elite Source. But anyway, I think that just to go ahead and answer the question, I think that it is super important for all ages to be versed in internet. I think a lot of emphasis is especially placed on the older generations because for me, when it comes down to it, whenever I meet my grandma is literally asking me, like, how do you turn off the phone? And I'm like, grandma, really? Like, how you turn the volume up? So I think that because we're in a space where the younger generations are growing up in technology, everything is becoming digital. It's to the point where when you go into a store, you're not even using a physical card. You can literally use tap to pay, or the thing where the wireless pay credit cards. So we're growing up in an age of technology. So it's really important so that we are able to have an understanding of the technology so that we can protect and guide our youth and ourselves, from, seeing inappropriate things or just being exposed to certain kind of medias, as well as being able to function and, stay alive into the society. Because especially for like, people that are like in their 50s and 60s, it can be really difficult. And for me, a lot of times I've seen my grandmother fall prey to so many scams and schemes, and she'll call me, she's like, oh my gosh, they got this good deal, they got this good stuff, they got this, and I'm just like, it's not real, grandma. She's like, how you know it's not real? I'm like, grandma, trust me, it's not real. Next thing you know, she done sit up here and put her information. She's like, oh my gosh, it's not real. I'm like, I know. So that's just my personal take on it.
How do you realize it's not real though? How do you realize it's a scam? Like, what are the red flags for you?
Because it's a lot of it is the way the advertisement is presented. You know what I mean? Because especially like when you have like just pop-ups like, oh, you can win a free $100 gift card if you put in your address. Like what? Like it just sounds shisty, and it just, you know what I mean? It just doesn't really make much sense. Or for example, you'll get a call from a weird number claiming that they're your bank and that they need to verify, certain pieces of information. Like it's just weird, shisty stuff that just doesn't, you know what I mean? That just doesn't seem, too real.
Well, listen, be thankful that you're smart enough and slick enough to realize that they're trying to be slick with you. Because I used to work at the state attorney's office, and there's a lot of scams that happen, especially to the older generations, and they don't realize, that they're being scammed. They're getting random phone calls, and they're not understanding. So I'm glad that you're there for your grandmother to help her and to tell her this is a scam. I know that my husband loves to try and buy me things off the internet, especially Instagram. And one time he bought a dress. And by the time it came to our house, that dress was so hard, like it was horribly put together. It was supposed to have a pretty big bow here. The bow was like here. It was just a mess. And so I have forbidden him from buying anything off the internet, unless it's a reputable company. Now, because I'm a little bit like you in the sense that I think that everything is a scam before I like to read the fine print.
Definitely.
But that comes from my background in the industries that I worked in. Being a journalist, I had to be able to know what is credible, who is credible from what isn't credible. And because of that, I'm a lot harder to scam because I have just checks and balances, a lot of checks and balances. So with safety, have you guys ever had a situation, that's open to everyone, has anyone had a situation where a scammer or someone came at you, just purposefully and really kept trying to get at you and scam you? Did anyone ever have a situation? Ray, you did. Ray, you've been quiet, but you've been nodding, you've been into the conversation. I appreciate that. So what was your story? Let me hear your voice.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, for me, specifically, it's like Instagram. When they look at my Instagram, and I'm sure they didn't even like bother going through my profile, and they're like, "Oh, we need a model," or something like, "Can you advertise me? Can we sponsor you?" Stuff like that. That's that's a scam for sure, because like how straightforward they are about it, you know. So that's like one.
It's true. Yeah, it's happened to my daughter where she's a dancer at University of Miami. And so, she posts her pictures and everything, and she's been hit with a lot of things, and a lot of organizations will come at her, hey, free this, and why don't you wear our clothes and you'll get 20% off and promote this. And I get it a lot too, because I am on television, and I'll get, if I do a post that has great interaction, all of a sudden I'll start getting the randoms and the let's do this and let's collaborate. I love your page, let's collaborate. But they want me to buy something. At the end of the day, a true collaboration, I shouldn't be spending my money. It really doesn't work that way. And I kept telling my daughter that, and she saw a company she liked, and she thought they were coming at her. And I said to her, no, just hold out. And sure enough, she ended up getting a job with a reputable hair care company because she wears her hair curly. And she now is employed by that company, and she gets paid every time she posts a video, and she's required to post like 2 posts and a story, and on her story on IG, and she's doing that, and she's actually getting paid. But it took her, a few times. You know how you've heard, I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, you kiss a few frogs before you get to the prince, or you have to go through a few bad situations before you get to that one. And that's what happened. She had to see all the negative interactions coming through her DMs before the real job came through, where she didn't have to pay for anything. She did have to fill an application. They did screen her. They did go through a interviewing process. She went through 3 interviews. Well, I've held up 4 fingers, three interviews. And like I said, now she gets a paycheck for posting. So it is a possibility. But if anyone is asking you for money, asking you for any kind of personal information, you definitely don't give that out over the internet. I want to hear again from our family therapist, Minishka. And is there anything that you've seen in your practice as far as technology is concerned, and how it's hurt families or torn families apart with relationships?
I'm going to go back to two comments ago about the use of technology and the age range. And, it's so crazy that in 2021, I have parents that are still very adamant about allowing their child to be on social media, to use social media. And I have to kind of talk them through this and really make them understand that you don't know the world in which they will inherit. And so in your absence, you're not preparing them for that. Because like right now you have an opportunity to guide and let them ask those questions, to say, hey, Mom, look at this. Isn't this weird? Identify the scamming, like it's collaborative, but you're going to send them out there in the world by themselves with no clue, no training, because you didn't want them to use social media because it was inappropriate according to you. And I always tell them, I said, so how did your parents react the first time you got a credit card? I mean, remember when the debit card transition was happening and the whole credit card, like all of them remember how we felt that was a scam and you're going to get overcharged and you need to really keep your identity. And, it was this big thing about transitioning from cash to credit. And so it's that same reservation that they're having with technology. And I have to remind them, like, you were here before. It's just a different thing. But just like people that don't understand credit cards and they overmax their credit cards and they don't have a good financial history because they didn't have the conversation earlier and they never established a healthy relationship with money and credit. It is the exact same thing as it relates to social media. If they don't have an opportunity to establish a healthy relationship with social media under your guidance, then you are leaving them out there for the wolves. And so don't do that to your child. Let them have the social media. Let them have access to the technology. My child was 3, and I monitored. He had the orange thingy, like I forgot what they call.
What are you talking about? From Amazon.
Yeah, the orange one, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so he had technology that was appropriate for his age.
Right.
So he's not coming at my cell phone. So like a lot of the parents just give the kids their cell phone. No, give them age appropriate technology for them to become adapted to. And then they get this progression that happens over time. But it's kind of like just easier to put them on YouTube, not the kids' YouTube, just regular YouTube. So there's just so many things that just have to take place. And so it's a hard conversation. It really is for the parents that are like, we don't do technology. And believe me, their child have a whole account somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I know a mom and her daughters are teenagers, like young, like they were like 11 and 13. And she and I went back and forth, and she's like, nope, they're not going to be on social media. There's too much wrong. And I said, you have to be there to guide them. There is wrong, but if you don't teach them, and if you're not aware, like, what are you so afraid of? You have to, and that frightens me, because those end up being the kids that are so curious.
Right.
Those are the ones that, and I know you know what I'm talking about. You see them at school, they're curious, or they have a whole account, like you said, under their friends' accounts. So when they're in school, they are posting. I know you know about those kids. Everyone who's here who's in high school, there's students like that have accounts behind their parents' backs. I never wanted that. And like, you're absolutely right. I'll let you continue. But I know parents like that.
Yeah, it's very, very hard and disheartening. And it does take a very long time for me to convince them, but I mean, they eventually understand. So even if you have friends and family, like, really have them start having that conversation, because it's just not fair to the child. Like, because you are just leaving them wide open. They will be the ones that get lured in to meet somebody in a strange park because they believe the information that is being shared, because they don't have any experience.
Right.
And so does social media break people up? Absolutely.
Breaks people up.
So it goes back to, that trust issue, right? And the communication of what should and should not be happening within our relationship, and what are our relationship norms. And so it's very important for people to establish that in the beginning. Like, you might have a significant other that is like post crazy, like they post everything, or they might legitimately have a business online and that's how they make their money. And then you're there with the opposite person that doesn't believe in posting at all and wants to keep everything private. So you have those dynamics constantly happening, and it does negatively impact. It's just one more thing, as if relationships didn't have it hard enough, but it's just one more thing that is being added to the relationship platter of what can it ultimately bring a relationship to an end is, social media. And it just goes back to not being able to have that balance, not balancing it.
I'd like to throw in something really quick, if I may.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So for me, I think that's really an interesting point that you made when you said that when you fail to, properly train the child and give them the knowledge of social media, you leave them prey to it. And for me, that was something that happened. That was something that really happened to me, because I mean, I can't even remember how young I was when I had a Facebook account. Not only did I have a Facebook account, but I was Facebook infamous. I was in every different aspect of the way, but I wasn't, engaged in like crazy things. But I definitely learned a lot by being so exposed, because it was kind of like I was out and about in the world, but only digitally. And for me, I learned and encountered so much. And I think that, moving forward, I feel like out of everything that I experienced, I do feel that it is so essential for us to kind of like train children and just to train ourselves and educate ourselves on social media. Because for me, I had a lot of, wisdom and common sense to not engage and do, certain things. But for someone who may not have that kind of like, mentality or sensibility, they might go out and do something, or they might find themselves, like you said, in that park meeting up, or, just something crazy. So I just wanted to like kind of, like add on to that. So I definitely really, really agree with that.
Yeah, I was gonna go back, talk about like how social media can break up relationships, it definitely can have a problem, affect like even the parents' relationship with their children. How many of you, from my panelists, have experienced that or seen that within your friends, where it's been like a big issue between either you and your family or your friends, where you've seen something, a negative impact that it's had on their relationships? Has anyone?
Personally, I had a friend of mine who her dad isn't the most modern day guy. Like he's very, if it's modern, it's the enemy. Um, and he's just a very old school guy. And she just has she has very, I guess people would almost call it liberal in a sense views, and he's like the very opposite. So he kind of like stumbled across her social media, and it just started a fire in their house. Like he was so angry that his daughter was like the complete opposite of him. But it's just like, this is why she's so quiet in her home and they don't really talk very much, because it's like there's a brick wall, and he climbed the brick wall and wasn't happy about what was on that other side of the wall. And so he's kind of just like, you want to be like everyone else on social media? And she's just like, no, I just found people who were like me on social media. And so I feel like more often than not, I feel like sometimes with parents and other family members, they're almost angry at the fact that they didn't know that other person like they thought they did.
Do you think that, well, was her page number one something, were there alarming things on it, or?
Oh no, not at all. Like it was just a very trivial things realistically. Like she just had different political views than him. She just had different views on like social issues, things like sexuality. So he wasn't a happy camper. And he wanted to blame social media for her views. And it's just like, no, she's just not who, like she wasn't the projected idea of his child that she thought that he thought she was. Because like that was the same thing with me and my parents. I felt like my mom and my dad actually understood me better after following me on Instagram and just seeing how I interacted with other people. But whereas I got a positive reception, she didn't get that.
Wow. So do you feel that, because we talk about, you're either on social media, you're either selling the dream or you're selling the reality, right? That's what I see in sales. Do you feel that the majority of people that you're seeing on Instagram is selling the realities of life, or they're selling like a false dream? Because in your situation with your friend, you said that she was showing who she truly was, and you hear a lot of times that people are fake. It's not truly who they are. But in her case, she was real, which is interesting to me. So I'm just wondering, do you feel that your generation are showing the realities of life, or are they showing like the dream?
I feel like it's a weird mix. Since there's so many different generations and demographics online, I feel like that's kind of hard to pinpoint. I feel like with my generation personally, we're sold a lot of advertising and marketing and stuff like that. Like even with the new update, why is our notification tab replaced with a shopping bag? I don't use Instagram to shop. I didn't download Instagram to spend money. And so I feel like our generation has become very hyper aware that we don't really want to be sold things that aren't real and like what we didn't ask for. Whereas like you have some older people who get on social media, like even that weird era of like that like tummy tuck tea. I don't know what that was all about, but it's just like everywhere you look, there
Flat
was
tummy
like,
tea.
yeah, that. And it's just this milkshake powder that was supposed to like give you an amazing body. And it's just like you had these women who probably had like surgically altered bodies that were promoting a health shake when it's just like that wasn't how you got there.
Right.
Why are you advertising that to people that way? So it's just like, depending on who the generation is, some people don't see it that way and some people do. It's kind of hard. I don't think some people are aware that they're pushing a fake dream. Some people don't want anybody in their business, so they post all the highs. And some people just want you to believe that they live that way. I feel like intention is way more important than what it looks like.
That's interesting. It's so refreshing, and thank you for your honesty. like, I think for the adults in the room who's on this call to listen, and even, I'm seeing, everyone else, all the other panelists shaking their heads in agreement. And to have your honesty be told and for us to hear, I think it's so important for moments like this, for each generation to hear each other. So what attracts you guys to pages, like people that you do follow? Like what attracts you to those things? Like when you decide to follow someone you don't know, why do you do that? What is the attraction?
For me, is it an open floor question or was that directed
Yeah,
to someone?
absolutely open floor. Because I know the topic is about digital safety, but it really sounds like this group has that down. You guys are ridiculously smart and savvy, and I am thoroughly impressed by the responses and the interaction that I'm hearing. So go ahead.
So for me, I think that for me, when I follow someone or when I choose to engage on their platform, I look for commonalities in myself, or I just look for content, that I respect and that I interest. Something for me, I believe in the law of attraction. So I believe that if I personally lack something, I follow and put myself in spaces that have that thing so that I can acquire it and attract it towards me. So if I want to be a rapper, I will follow accounts of people who I respect as rappers, and not just anybody that raps, but people that I actually deem, skill worthy. Or for example, if I am trying to, develop myself in my spiritual journey, I'll follow people that I think are authentic in their journey, so that, I just pick up gems from them. I like to put myself in like learning places that I can grow in, or if not that, I'll just follow accounts that, that I like, or just things that I would want to see on my timeline. For me, something that I used to do, I just used to follow people because I knew them, and I stopped doing that because what would end up happening is my story and page would just be flooded with a bunch of material that I either just didn't really, care for. It was just like, why is this on my timeline? So for me, it just became more intentional about who I followed and what energy I subscribe to. So if I do subscribe to something, it's either because I like it and it is a reflection of myself, or it is something that I want to incorporate within myself.
I like that. I like that a lot. Anyone else?
I kind of just go off of the flow of productivity. Like, same with like what he was saying. When I first got on social media, I just followed anybody I knew. Like, I just wanted my follower count to look like everyone else's. So I was like, I'll follow you, you follow me. But as I got older, it just got really draining. I hated seeing negativity. I hated seeing people in a lack of productivity. So it was just anybody that I saw that was just doing their thing. Like, the business didn't matter, the talent didn't matter. It was just like, wow, you're being productive, you're doing what you want, I'm gonna follow you. I unfollowed pages like the Shade Room and like Neighborhood Talk because all of that was just really negative. And it's just like, I opened my timeline, you have nothing positive to say about people. And it just turns into a thing, especially since social media has become so algorithm based. It's like it's so much easier for me to get on my feed what I want to. And I think that's something that is really great about the algorithm and how it's set up. Now I don't have to look for things that are productive. I don't have to look for things that are in my lane because they get offered to me. So I just feel like, as much as social media can be a negative and scary place, it's really what you make it.
I like that. I like that. Cordell, I haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Well, for me, because I can't lie, sometimes I will follow people for vanity's sake, and if they look good, or for myself, if I think they're cute, I'm gonna follow you.
Of
But
course.
beyond, I do like I do follow like other people that are like-minded like me, as well as also trying to follow people that it's like I can benefit from following you rather than it being a deficit. So instead of me following you and then it's essentially just stuff that's either going to waste my time or that I don't really need to see from you, there'd be no need in following you. But for others, it would be, well, there's something I can gain from being around your page, or there's something that I like off of your page that I feel like I can learn from and grow from. I'll follow you. So in that instance, that's probably where I would direct more of my follows and my time on social media towards, rather than just people posting materialistic things and just doing things for the sake of vanity and, I guess, validation from a group of people who don't know them.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone else who wants to add to that? John, you showed your face now and everybody's all excited.
Yeah.
So what do
I'm
you want to
sorry.
add? You've been listening in the background.
Yeah, I've been here. I've been listening. I appreciate everybody for being here. I kind of just wanted everybody to do their thing, and I didn't want to, impose. But it's good to see so many familiar faces and hear you guys talk about this topic. And I've experienced a lot of things, especially as being an artist and feeling the pressure of having to like put on for social media or being like this facade of a person or an artist of who you are. And a lot of times what you guys are saying, I really can relate to and I agree with, like just being yourself and being true and knowing your intentions behind what you're doing. Like if you decide that you want to show those things, then, be purposeful and be intent about it. And just know people are watching and people will judge and will get whatever they want from what you post and what you do on social media, as well as on any websites and what you promote yourself as. So, just be mindful of that. We're in a new age of digital technology. And so, like you said, people can find your information and search you up on Google and find anything from you, from tweets to posts and things of that nature. So just being mindful of those things is what we want to spread, just being aware. But for sure, I agree with you all.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for being here tonight.
For sure.
Yeah, it's true. It's true what you said about being intentional. And that's why I'm not opposed to the whole Finsta thing with a lot of kids. My son is trying to go to, he wants to play D1 basketball at college. And, I like that his true Instagram is clean, and then he has the way he wants to communicate with his friends on another page, which I still remind him, all that stuff is archived and it can be screenshotted. And if somebody really wants to get at you, they will. So just be very mindful. Like you said, John, have intention, when you're posting, when you're doing things, do it with intention, like understand the repercussions of your actions. And it's tough. It is such a delicate line to walk, because you don't really want to go through life caring so much about what other people think of you, right? And we're taught like to have our own viewpoint, and you can't care about what other people think, but at the same time we know that we're being judged, and everything that we're doing, we're being judged, whether we're getting a job or whatever it is that we want to do. So we do want to be able to freely be ourselves, but in all honesty, it's very hard to freely be yourself in this era with technology, because people are watching, they are holding it. Whatever you may say, you might have a bad day and post something that you might regret the next day and you want to take it down, but somebody might have taken a screenshot of it and it's archived and it's always there. So you do have to be mindful. Does this represent who I truly am? And that's what you have to really think about, and that's something that I also am working on as well, because I think that social media has changed. And I think when it first came out, it was about you going to McDonald's and getting a bite of food and talking about, I look back at some of my old Facebook posts from when I first started to now, and they are so different. Like what I post, how I post, the intention is very different. So, we have a few more minutes on here, and I just want to open the floor to just talk about, anything that you would like to talk about. If there are any questions, if there's anything else that anyone would like to add, or we could revisit. Again, the topic was just, safety in the digital age. And, I think we did a really good job of covering that. And it's very obvious that these groups of panelists here, they're going to be all right. I feel really comfortable about you guys being all right. And you're going to be teaching the next generation, your younger cousins and siblings and students younger than you and people around you. I'm very proud of you all. Like to hear you guys were all raised well. You have a great village. It's very obvious, and you're blessed, each of you. So is there anyone who wants to add anything? Is there anyone who wants to talk about anything?
Well, I have something if I can go.
Hey, go ahead.
So one thing I do want to add that I don't hear anyone talk about, or maybe I missed it, is that you definitely have to be prepared for social media. And I agree with the childproof and then switching over to the actual social media, is because if you're not prepared, you're definitely, or not you, but like maybe kids or whoever maybe who's new to social media, is they're going to feel insecure. And that's a really big thing, because when it comes to relationships or friends, there's like insecurity, there's taking things too personally, there's like, you know, like, oh, she's definitely talking about me, but it could be like some stranger at the mall. Like, that's something I wanted like to add on too. So when it comes to like posting about yourself, as long as it's respectful to you, who cares what people think? You know, as long as it's respectful, it's like, you know, presentable. You know, you're not trying to like show yourself in a negative matter, you know. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
No, but you're right. Like, what do you do when you get the negative interactions, when you get the trolls, when you get somebody to say something that hurts your feelings? Because I don't care.
What do I do?
Well, you can tell me what you do, but what do we do in general? Go ahead.
Okay, like before when I was in high school, I was one of those who was very insecure and like kind of relied too much what people think about me. But now I don't even give it the light of day. Like, I know who I am. I know I am my own source of happiness. So I don't really like care, you know?
Yeah. But how did you get to that place?
Oh, I went through a lot of bullying. So like in high school, after the bullying stopped and I had my own, you know, I am my own person after high school, I kind of, I learned who I am. And, you know, after that, I don't know, I guess progressively learned that no one's opinion really matters but my own, because, you know, there's phrases out there like, don't overthink. And that's something I got tattooed on me, don't overthink. And
wow, yeah.
I had another thing, but I kind of forgot, but I'll let you talk.
No, it's fine. No, I want you to talk, you know, so tell me about you now. Are you in college or what are you doing now?
Oh yeah, I'm in college.
Okay, where do you go to school at?
USF. Go
okay. That's awesome. Yay. So, you know, to get to that space, you know, it's interesting hearing you say that, because I think that a lot of us don't realize when we are in high school that we probably will never see the majority of people that we go to high school with after high school. Again, I'm older, I already disclosed my age. I have no problem disclosing my age because I'm very comfortable where I am in life. But I have like just a few friends from high school, my same best friend, I still have her, you know, and I have maybe one or two other that I may speak to regularly. The rest of them, you know, think about it. You go to high school with those folks just because you all live in that same area, you know, so you're getting kind of a similar socioeconomic situations. You're getting similar, usually demographics, ethnically. It may be mixed, but still within the school, you're going to have your different sections of folks who hang together. But then when you go out into the world, it's so different. And you realize that all those voices that were in your head, that people who meant something to you no longer mean anything to you because they're not around. So sometimes it's the removing of that environment. So Ray, I'm happy for you. I'm happy to hear, and I'm sorry to hear, well, first, I'm sorry to hear that you were bullied. That makes me very upset. But I'm happy that you've been able to overcome it. And you definitely seem like you're very happy now and that you're settled and you're whole and you're doing well in life. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. But I do want to say that, yeah, the bullying thing put me through like a sad time, but it doesn't define me. And, you know, it's not one of those things I regret either. Like, I wouldn't be who I am without the bullying. So, you know, like it's like one of those things, like you don't know happiness unless you face the sadness. Yeah. So, you know, there's that.
For you, I like that. All right, I like your attitude, totally. So it sounds like you have a very positive Instagram, or you know, motivational speaker eventually.
I don't know about motivational speaker, but I don't use Instagram that much, but I am I am active on social media. I can't talk.
So what do you guys normally do now? I noticed, like, my daughter posted the other day this silly thing. I like to power walk in my house sometimes, and my husband will follow and power walk behind me, and my daughter posted it on TikTok, and it like really blew up. It has like over 1,200 shares, and she's like, you're going TikTok viral. And it was the silliest thing, but like you all said, it was organic, it was simple, it was just me walking around my house, you know. And to them it was funny because she wrote reasons why I leave and go live on campus, but it's also reasons why I come back home because of them, you know. And it was cute, and it was organic, and it was natural. what was happening. So it's obvious that your generation, you guys can weed out the scams and you see things that are authentic, and that's what you want. So is there anyone else who wants to add, about their experiences? And
I like to tell everybody not to be scared to use their block button. I don't know why people feel like they can't remove somebody from their space. Like, because I'm quick. Somebody messages me something I don't like. Somebody says something in my comments I don't like. You're blocked. Like, you don't have to be here. You're not allowed to be here. This is my space. I feel like people need to understand that with social media, it is just as much real as their real life personal space, especially because you signed up to be here. Like, imagine you start paying rent somewhere and anybody just walk in your house. You can kick them out. So it's just like, you can regulate your own space. So I just tell people all the time, don't be scared to block somebody, because what are they going to do? They can't do anything. They're blocked. So I just tell people to really look into that. I feel like so many people more often than not don't want to block people because they don't want to look like they're running away or that they're being a coward.
Being mean.
Right.
I wasn't blocking folks till I just saw my daughter. She was always blocking, block. I'm like, why are you so quick to block folks? Block. And then I learned it does feel good, when I get some randoms, hi, and some weirdos, it's just block.
It's just like, I feel like people's behavior on social media is a really genuine reflection of what they deal with in real life. So I feel like when people are scared to block people, it's because they feel like they have to deal with people in real life too. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't. I just feel like people need to not be so scared to protect themselves and their energy.
Yeah.
Like being a girl, if you get catcalled in real life, you're scared to say something because you don't know how someone could respond. So girls get online and feel like they can't block people and they can't delete comments. So my block button is abused. I just feel like everybody should abuse it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for empowering me to use my block button.
And I would love to add something to that I have just noticed as a spectator. Because I think I did so much of it when I was younger, I don't participate. So I do have several active accounts, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of that. But I do observe the nastiness, not just with young people, with adults as well. And what always bothers me is that, yes, there are some people who will block other people, or yes, there are people who will unfollow certain people or tell them to unfollow them. But I feel like there's such a lack of accountability for the things that are said, because there's a level of cruelty that I have seen online that is so disturbing for me, because I'm a positive person.
Yeah.
And I often have found that there is knowledge of who the person is that is leaving the cruelness, but will not say anything to that person in real life. And that is something that I think needs to change, like, immediately. During this election cycle, I learned certain perspectives of colleagues that I knew, that I respected, that I considered a friend, that are no longer my friend, that I no longer respect, because you decided that it was okay, being someone who said that you cared about me or cared about my experience or the experience of people like me. However, you knew me following you, that I would see this eventually, and still felt that it was totally okay to express this particular view. So that means I don't know who you are. And if I don't know who you are, then you don't need to be in my life, because I don't need any type of mysteries. I'm too old. We're very similar. I'm 44. I have a degree in mass communications. I have a minor in psychology, so it's like, I'm always observing and watching people. I'm always trying to think about the deeper issues. And there are a lot of, like, just messed up, hurting people in the world. And I get that. But at the same time, it feels like we're so brave to give all this information online, but so afraid to tell people the truth to their face. And that is something that I would love for young people to do. Being a high school teacher, I see bullying in all of its forms. Being a former high school student, I remember bullying in all of its forms. And I think that's something that's a mainstay in the high school experience. That's just something I think that you'll have. But I can't tell you how many kids have been caught, if you will, by parents, by administration, saying the most horrific things that if they said in person would be suspended for, but there are no consequences for them. And so I just feel like young people, as a learning experience of being online and understanding that this is in fact the new world, it's the extension of our real world, and therefore it should hold consequences just like the real world, in my opinion.
No, that's definitely one point.
I would just like to add, and I've had this conversation, and everybody has heard me say this, and I think it would be something that we would start to talk about, is that, you know, we are currently coexisting with 5 generations, and, you know, this has not happened before, you know, at this level. So there is so much happening at one time. And if we don't take time to really get to know and share each other's experiences, we will miss each other in this transition phase. And so one generation will not have the knowledge and the insight of the previous generation, because everybody is operating in their silos and having their own experience and coupled with their generation. So just acknowledge and recognize that we have to come together and solve these problems together, because they don't go away. They just manifest in different ways from generation to generation. So, you know, that father that is closed off, don't really understand his daughter, don't understand, you know, her political views, is making him uncomfortable. But that is a necessary thing that must happen in that household. So we have to continue to be disruptors, right? So that we can kind of build these bridges, because we got to burn them down to build them back up, and not be afraid to have those hard conversations. And sometimes people feel safe on social media to share aspects of themselves that they may not be able to share in person. And I always say, at least they had somewhere, right? They had a place where they felt that they can be themselves and have this shared experience with other people. So we are all finding and looking for places to belong. And that's the part of social media that I like. It doesn't, you know, it could be from one extreme to another, but it's still yours to have. And like Tasia said, if you don't like it, keep scrolling, unfriend and block. But let those people, you know, it could be from one extreme to another. They're having their own experiences. And at the end of the day, you only live once. No one is taking you into the next phase of the dimension of whatever is life after death. It is what it is. So letting people have their experiences, having a conversation, understanding that we are sharing this planet with 5, almost 6 generations, and we got a lot of catching up to do.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know we're almost at 7, and if anyone has anything else to add or any questions, just gonna get ready to wrap everything up. We went through all of our questions. You know, we talked about the internet, we talked about safety. I feel that, like I said, this panel was amazing. Seriously, you guys know your stuff, and I think that things like this need to happen, because there is, like you said, Manishka, that there's 5 generations, and there is so much misunderstanding between the different generations. And whether it's an apathy to learning about the other group or the other generation, or if it's just a disconnect, a natural disconnect, we have to work on that. You know, take the time to educate the other generations around you. Take the time to express yourself, and I try to use everything as a teachable moment, so that we all can learn from each other. And when you feel like they're not listening to you, someone that you love, a family member, your parents, or even for your friends, because it sounds like you all come from a very you have a strong home life, and you're going to interact with those who don't. So some words of encouragement for them would be to try to have them to express themselves to their parents, even if their parents have different views. Sometimes it means writing a letter to that parent to let them understand, because if they try and express it verbally, it'll turn into an argument or a shouting match. But it's important to speak your truth and to know your truth and to be who you are at the end of the day. And of course, to stay safe and monitor the younger generations. I know that my older ones, the 19 and 17-year-old, they do help with monitoring my 9-year-old on, social media, because the 17-year-old, he knows PlayStation and he understands what's going on with the 9-year-old. I do not understand. I didn't want him playing Fortnite, and it was my 17-year-old who was like, Mom, he can play Fortnite. It's not that bad. I'm like, but it's shooting. And he's like, no, it's okay. You can let him play. I'll watch him. It's not bad. But, just want to wrap everything. Thank you all for being here tonight. Of course, thank you to the Jason Taylor Foundation for hosting this event. We appreciate everyone who's here this evening who donated their time. Of course, we have Manishka Santiel. Are you Dr. Manishka Santiel? Have I been disrespecting you all night by just calling you by your first name?
No, just a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I will be going back to make sure I got have the PhD, but yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to disrespect. So if you could, if anyone needs a good family therapist, you have her here, and I'm sure you can get in touch with her. You can, write her name down. I'm sure you can Google her to find her if you do know of anyone who needs a licensed family therapist, because it's so needed, especially in this day and age. We all need someone to talk to outside of our circle who likes to think they know what they're talking about, and they really don't. They're just as knowledgeable as you. So again, thank you everyone for tonight, and hopefully I'll see you at our next event. Good night.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa Lee. I'll just wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Ms. Manushka Saint-Til. Thank you, Ray, for being here, the whole panelists. You guys did awesome. I just have a couple events I just want to shout out for the YouTube Live. April 14th, we have the alumni open mic. So any of my alumni college open mic, if you guys want to attend, if you just want to see what it's about, you can attend that. That is April 14th. April 15th, we have a teaching artist showcase called Amped Up. I'll be performing, as well as some other awesome South Florida poets. April 16th is our indie finals. That will be virtual, so you can check that out on our YouTube Live at Jason Taylor Foundation. And April 17th, we have our team finals in person at the Lou Rawls Theater at Florida Memorial University. So that is all the information for you guys there. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And you all were awesome. We loved the conversation. And I hope you guys left here with something. So thank you. Hope you have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.